In this video, we will explore a wide variety of stone house designs from around the world, ranging from the traditional to the modern, all of which have one thing in common: beauty born of simplicity and closeness to nature. Prepare yourself for a sense of serenity, and let each image bring you closer to the balance and inspiration of nature. Welcome to DM8K channel. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you. A small, rustic-style dwelling made of stone, with a makeshift roof covered with grass and tarpaulin. It is in the middle of the forest, with windows and a visible entrance at the front. In front of it runs a small stream that adds to the natural and tranquil feel. The warm and cozy little stone cottage, with walls that appear to have been made by hand and a sloping roof covered in bark, creates a natural and traditional feel. The veranda at the front is supported by rough wooden posts that add to the rustic feel. The atmosphere of the house looks very well maintained, with subtle and clean details, reinforcing the peaceful and unpretentious feel. A small stone house that stands gracefully on a serene mountainside, surrounded by lush forests and stunning natural beauty. The house exudes a warm rustic charm, and blends harmoniously with its surroundings. The walls are composed of neatly arranged stones, giving it a timeless handmade feel. The roof is overgrown with fresh green grass, adding aesthetic as well as functional value as a natural insulation. A small stone house nestled quietly in the middle of the forest, with rough walls that emphasize the natural feel and a wooden veranda that adds a warm touch. The house sits in a beautifully landscaped open area, surrounded by curving pathways filled with flowering plants, moss, and ferns, giving it an elegant tropical feel. It's a cozy little stone house, hidden in the middle of a dense forest filled with tall, wide-branched pine trees. The walls of the house are composed of uneven stones arranged with great skill, as if they were made with simple but meticulous tools. The roof is overgrown with moss, giving it a strong natural feel and blending in with the forest atmosphere. The forest floor is filled with fallen leaves and wild vegetation, creating a natural texture that reinforces the soothing rustic and harmonious feel. A beautiful stone cottage in the middle of a lush forest. The walls of the cottage are made of boulders, with green-framed wooden windows that give it a warm and natural touch. Above the windows are flower boxes filled with bright red flowers that dangle down, adding to the visual beauty. The roof is made of wooden shingles, further reinforcing the traditional feel. At the front of the cottage runs a small stream with clear water flowing between boulders, creating a peaceful and calming atmosphere. A one-story rustic stone cottage nestled in the middle of an old-growth forest, surrounded by large trees with sprawling branches. The cottage has a veranda adorned with hand-carved wooden posts, adding a unique artistic touch. The sloping roof of the house is partially covered in moss, reinforcing the natural feel and blending in with the surrounding environment. The small dirt path leading to the house creates a secluded and hidden feeling, as if the house is a secret gem in the middle of the forest. A rustic-style one-story stone house surrounded by tall forest trees with unique twisted trunks. At the front of the house is a meticulously landscaped garden, filled with bright flowers such as snapdragons, daffodils, and pansies that provide lively color and natural beauty. Rare hanging plants dangle from the veranda beams, adding exotic visual appeal, creating a peaceful and alluring atmosphere. A rustic-style stone house equipped with an outdoor fireplace, surrounded by lush greenery against a backdrop of majestic mountains. Warm sunlight floods the entire scene, creating a cozy and friendly atmosphere that reinforces the natural appeal of this place. A peaceful, rustic feel is felt through the simple yet powerful elements. A single-story, rustic-style stone cottage stands quietly in the middle of a dense forest, bringing a peaceful atmosphere that blends with nature. The surroundings are well appointed yet retain a natural feel, harmoniously blending wild and tidy elements. A gravel pathway meanders gently to the front porch, surrounded by fern bushes and colorful flowering plants. On the porch, vintage wooden benches and tables are surrounded by rare plants in non-uniform pots, giving it a warm and earthy eclectic touch. A small, warm stone cottage welcomes you, complemented by a shady wooden porch under a gently dangling mossy roof. The natural ambience is palpable thanks to the intricately designed landscaping. Beautifully landscaped cobblestone paths, soft green moss blanketing the ground, and ornamental plants such as pothos variegata, rare orchids, and wildflowers growing in harmony. A perfect hideaway from the hustle and bustle of the outside world. This charming little stone house, tucked away in the Rocky Mountains, offers the ideal rustic escape. The hand-constructed stone facade with wooden shuttered windows adds an authentic and calming rustic charm. The best tiny garden ideas are realized with the harmonization of daisy, chamomile, and rosemary flowers growing side by side. A cobblestone path on the side of the house, dotted with ferns and potted geraniums, leads to a small vegetable garden behind the house, adding functional value without sacrificing aesthetics. This rustic stone house sits gracefully on a stunning mountain hilltop, offering panoramic views of snowy mountains and deep green valleys. Its aged stone walls adorned with ivy vines blend naturally into the surrounding landscape, creating a sense of harmony and timelessness. The open wooden beamed porch, furnished with cozy rocking chairs and a small table, is an ideal place to relax and enjoy the mountain air. At the front, the lush garden surrounded by a low stone fence is filled with fragrant lavender, roses, and colorful wildflowers, giving it a natural feel while reinforcing the timeless beauty of this mountainside retreat. A small rustic stone house with a wooden porch sits quietly on the edge of a hill, offering a unique and alluring natural setting. The beauty of the house is enhanced by the presence of rare plants such as blue lotus and maroon leaf coleus, which are planted in antique ceramic pots, giving it an artistic and exotic touch. The dramatic backdrop of flowing waterfalls and mountains in the distance, a view so mesmerizing that it feels almost like a living painting. An old stone house stands tall in the mountains of Switzerland, blending harmoniously with its natural surroundings. Most striking are the large boulders attached to the house, as if carved directly from the mountain itself. The surface is covered in moss and weeds, creating a stunning natural impression. On one side is a small door, adding a mysterious and functional touch to this unique building. The rustic-style stone cabin stands cozy on the edge of a cliff, adjacent to a dense forest that adds to the peaceful and secluded feel. The sturdy wooden roof and large windows that let in natural light create a warm and inviting atmosphere, perfect for a respite from the hustle and bustle of life. This cozy little stone house is hidden in the depths of a dense forest, bringing an atmosphere of calm and authenticity. Its uneven stone walls appear to have been crafted with great skill, using simple tools, reflecting painstaking handwork and character. The house has a small porch supported by natural wooden beams, complemented by a simple wooden fence, and decorated with rare ornamental plants in clay pots that enhance the look with a natural touch. Its moss-covered roof gives it a strong rustic charm, as if the house has long been part of the forest landscape.